Hi everyone. So the book I'm going to be talking about this week for Shelf Isolation is American Psycho by Bret Easton Ellis. So this is a book I've been meaning to read for a really long time. And a couple of students have asked about it in the past, and I sort of know the plot. Well, I've sort of known the plot, but not really been able to talk about it in great detail. So with all this time off, I thought it'd be a really good opportunity to read it, and it is shocking. I did not realise how quite so shocking it was. I read a lot of books, never been quite so shocked by a book before. So just a bit of a warning, really. It's really sexually explicit and really violent. So if you are in any way sensitive, don't read it. Just click off the video. You don't need to know anymore. So yeah, definitely not a book for the faint-hearted. But one thing I will say is that by the end, so it's so violent and so sexually explicit. But actually, I found that by the end of the book, I found that I was really quite desensitized to some of the really graphic violence in there. And I suppose that's what Ellis wants you to do. He wants you to be desensitized to it, and he wants you to feel it as if that is just like a normal way of life. And we can tell that from the main character, Patrick. So he's such a the way that he talks about violence is so casual and so matter of fact, and he even drops it into conversation with some of his friends. So they'll be like having dinner, and he'll just casually reference the fact that he's killed someone, or he's like, oh yeah, I killed this homeless person the other day. Or he will, be talking to them, or he'll be talking to his girlfriend, his fiance Evelyn, and she'll be annoying him. He'll be like, oh, I want to smash your face in. And she will just laugh it off, and his friends won't really pay much attention to it. And there's even a point quite near the end where he has this, he does this really big crime. I mean, there's crime all the way through, but he kills someone in their social circle, and he admits to someone that he's done it, one of their other friends, and the other friend doesn't believe him. He's like, oh no, don't be silly, I saw that person the other week. I had dinner with him in London. And obviously Patrick, the main character, killed this person, and the other character didn't have dinner with him in London. But the point is that they are either so self-absorbed in their own lives, and so selfish that they don't listen to him properly, or they don't realise what he's saying, or they just don't believe him. They just think he's joking. And the point is that we very often don't believe that someone who is so well connected and kind of lives this kind of lifestyle could be capable of such horrendous crimes. We tend to think of people in the lower classes are the criminals, but actually the point is that it's the people who are bankers or working on Wall Street. And yeah, that's basically the point. So Patrick is the main character, Patrick Bateman. He's written a first-person narrative, so he's the one telling us the story, so we get a really good insight into what he's thinking. However, towards the end of the book, he starts to talk a little bit more in third person, so it's almost like he's disassociating from what he's doing. He doesn't associate the crimes that he's committing with himself. So he's in his late 20s, and he works on Wall Street. He's got kind of it's not clear quite what he does. We maybe assume that he's working in banking or something. Anyway, he earns loads of money. He has an assistant called Jean, and the way that every time he introduces her, he says, "My secretary Jean, who is in love with me." He's so absorbed with what he himself, and he thinks that everyone is in love with him and that he's so perfect. And he works out at the gym all the time and kind of passes judgment on people. So the way that he talks about women, quite frankly, is disgusting. He's always comparing them, and he's got this girlfriend who we imagine who is quite beautiful, if a little bit stupid and spoilt. And he talks about her in quite a derogatory way. You know, she's like, oh, you know, Evelyn's got quite a good body, but Courtney's got better boobs, or something similar. So he lives a super materialist capitalist lifestyle. So he's either having dinner at ridiculously expensive restaurants, and always like critiquing them. And he always drinks J&B, it's called, and it's like a really expensive whiskey. And that he kind of slags off other makes of drinks, and he's quite critical over what people wear. He can like reel off all the designer labels that they're wearing. Most of them I did not quite understand, to be honest. I don't know loads about designer labels, but he's got like such an in-depth knowledge. He can like pick out what people are wearing just from like glancing at them. He goes shopping all the time. He goes to these expensive restaurants. He drinks a lot. He takes drugs in nightclubs. And one of the main things that he does is like when he's out and about. So he's got this fiancée Evelyn, who is, we imagine, is quite naive. So he sees her quite often, and you know there's some interaction with them. But another thing that he does is he goes to nightclubs, or you know sleeps with his friends' girlfriends, and lures women back to his apartment, where he will brutally sleep with them and then maim them and kill them. And very often he will just leave the bodies in his apartment for a few days, and he hires like imagine like a little bit of like a warehouse type thing, quite near his house, and then he'll take the bodies there and like leave them to decompose. Like he'll pour something called lime over them so they'll like decompose faster. But he's so like blasé about the way that he's killing people. Like he makes so little attempt to hide the fact that he has done this and done all these crimes. So he will like take his bed sheets with blood smeared all over them, like splatters of blood off his shirts, and take them to the dry cleaners and be like, oh, you can't get these blood stains out, what's wrong with you? And he'll have his maid like clean up bits of gore and body parts from his apartment. And he's so confident that he just won't get caught. Like he's so blasé about it. Like he feels like so little shame for what he's done. And it's the kind of, we imagine that he just, because he's so well connected and so wealthy, like he knows that he's not really going to get into trouble. So this would be a really good one to think about for class. So obviously, you know, I talked about train spotting last week. It's totally the other end of the class spectrum. So it's super materialist, super capitalist. A really good one for talking about consumerism as well. Obviously a really good one to do for madness. So if you're thinking about mental health and madness and how that's portrayed, obviously this one would be a good one to talk about for that. It's maybe a little bit less obvious, but I also think you could talk about presentation of women. So obviously it's written from a male perspective, but the way that he talks about women is really interesting, because he's so offensive, quite frankly, about the way that he talks about women. So I think that might also be one to talk about. So just to reiterate, not one for the faint-hearted. If you are anyway sensitive, please don't read this. But and I would say as well, it's not one that I would be rushing back to reread. But a lot of people that I've spoken to did really like it. I think for me, it's just the fact that I find it quite so shocking. But yeah, if it's something you're interested in, please give it a read, and I'd be happy to talk about it with you further.